Hello everyone and welcome back to Blockbuster Review. So ladies and gentlemen, this week we're going to be reviewing a movie rather than a book. The movie we're going to be reviewing this week is called The Sound of Freedom, which was released on the 4th of July 2023 all over the United States of America. There are some very interesting things about this movie. Number one, that this movie is based on an incredible true story and is absolutely mind-blowing when you watch it. Number two, this movie was an independent movie which was produced only in $14.5 million and ended up making more than $184 million in the US box office, making it one of the most profitable independent movies ever to be made in the history of Hollywood. Another interesting thing is that this movie was released exactly at the same time as Tom Cruise's movie Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is the Mission Impossible series movie. Now, Dead Reckoning was made in $291 million and ended up making $172 million in the US box office, which is $12 million less than this movie, which is surprising because this movie has no visual effects. It has no, it's not star-studded like Mission Impossible. There are no elaborate sets, no stunts, no glamour, any of that sort. But this is a very, very human and emotional and powerful movie. Sure, Tom Cruise's movie was a bigger success in the global scheme of things because it made about $567 million all over the world. But this movie cannot be compared to its global collections because it was never released globally, which is strange because this movie is so phenomenal that it should have been released in every country all over the world. Now, this movie, which was produced by the executive producer of this movie is Mel Gibson, and the lead actor is Jim Caviezel. This was directed by Alejandro Gomez, and it is basically about this true story about this gentleman by the name of Tim Ballard, who was working for the Department of Homeland Security in the United States of America, and his job was to stop child trafficking from happening, to break the child trafficking networks, to capture people who were doing that child trafficking, and to salvage the children who were sold in the child trafficking networks. And this movie is basically it centers around two children, one of whom comes to this Tim Ballard character who's played by Jim Caviezel, and he finds out that the boy's sister is still being sold in sex trafficking networks, and she's outside of the US. And so he makes it a mission of his life to go out and to save her. He loses his job in the process because the U.S. Department is not willing to fund that expedition because it's outside the jurisdiction of that department to operate outside the U.S. And he goes on this adventure, and it's really, really fascinating about the lengths that he goes to try to stop it. The movie it gives out some really interesting facts, one of which is that child trafficking has become a very serious problem all over the world. In the last 5 years, it has grown 5,000%, which means that if there was only 1 million children being sold in child trafficking networks 5 years ago, that number has risen to 50 million now. And this is a very serious problem that concerns me. It concerns you as well. And I'll give you two examples from my own surroundings that will help explain how this movie is relevant to each one of us. We may be thinking that child trafficking is a problem only in third world countries because child trafficking networks basically pick up children and they either sell them to mafias that have that basically take out the body parts or the internal organs and sell them, or they're put into the streets by amputating them, so that these mafias, which are operating for the sake of begging, making money from begging, they basically make money off these children once they get hold of them, or they're sold off for being sex slaves. And all of these problems seem to be centered around third world countries, but this movie shows that it's not really just a problem in any particular part of the world. It's a problem everywhere in the world. 17,200 cases were recorded in 2021 in the United States of America alone. Today in Mississippi, Nevada, and Florida, child trafficking is at its highest. It is almost uncontrolled. It is happening every day on the streets, and the children that are taken away are almost never ever found. So, this movie is very relevant to you and me. Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson have teamed once again after The Passion of the Christ for this movie, and they both disappeared off the screen, probably for reasons that I should not say on the screen. but now they've come back together and they've done a remarkable job of bringing the truth on the screen. And the two examples that I want to give you around my surroundings is that after watching the movie, a couple of days later, I went to, so this is about a week or 10 days ago, I went to a shop with my wife, and I was holding the baby. My baby is about 1 year old. And a woman comes up to me and says that, "Oh, it's such a cute baby. Do you mind if I carry him around for a bit?" And it is sort of confusing for me. Why would a woman say that she wants to carry a baby around? Holding a baby, okay, maybe that sounds like something somebody would say, but she wanted to carry the baby around, which means she wanted to walk around with the baby, or God knows take him where. And when she couldn't get through to me, then she tried to cozy up to me, saying that her nephew looked exactly the same as my baby. And when she asked the name of my baby, she said that was also the name of her nephew. So she was trying these antics to try to build rapport with me. And I just let her play with my baby, pull its cheeks or whatever. But the baby got very uncomfortable and just didn't want to be a part of that scene anymore. So I took the baby and I went out and I went to the other shop. And interestingly, my maid was watching this entire scene, and she reported back to me that as soon as I left the shop, the woman also ran away from the shop, which means that she wasn't there for shopping or for any other purpose, but just to somehow get hold of the baby. So it was a very traumatic, very disturbing experience, and I realized that this movie is, so important for every one of us to watch, because we all have children, or we all know other people who have children. Apart from the entertainment value that the movie delivers, it contains a very, very important message that we need to be careful about this mafia that is operating all over the world, in first world countries and in third world countries. The movie starts by showing that there's a woman who's like a talent hunter. She comes to the house of this gentleman who has a daughter, and she basically persuades him, using her charms, to give his daughter for modeling and for show business. And the way that she does it, the father agrees. Little does he know that she's going to take him and take the baby girl and sell her into a prostitution network. So one has to be very careful. The other example that has happened right next to my own example is that my mother-in-law has a maid, and she found out that 3 times her husband, who was a drug addict, had taken their children to be sold off on the streets for drug money, and each time somebody would catch him, and the whole thing would be called off. But it was, it's so surprising that sometimes it's not these distant people who are doing it. Sometimes it's our own relatives and our own people around us who are these traffickers. So all of these realizations are brought about by this movie. And it's a very gripping movie. It's a little hard to watch. There are no explicit scenes, but at the same time, the movie is, it has its implications about what happens to the children when they are trafficked, especially when they go into the sex networks. So it's essential for us to watch this movie, everybody. This movie was not released in cinemas outside of the U.S., like I said, for some strange reason. But and it's also come off from the U.S. So whether you're in the U.S. or outside the U.S., you won't be able to catch this movie on the cinema anymore. So you might be able to watch it on perhaps a Blu-ray or a DVD, or maybe there might be some streaming service that has this movie. Sound of Freedom is the name, and it is a phenomenal movie. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. There's only like 10 or 15 minutes in the movie where there's some talking going on, where you might feel the movie slowed down for a bit. The rest of the movie is all an adrenaline rush right from the first minute to the last. So watch this movie and leave some comments below about what you thought. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and we'll come back with another review next time. Goodbye. Have a nice day.